News on Ronda Rousey's status with WWE. How long is her contract? And how long is the current TNA champion's contract? We also take a look at today's released WWE business results. I give you my perspective on why we may not have as much of a say as we thought. This is PWR Tonight for Thursday, February 8th, 2018. Hello wrestling fans, Damian Nelson coming to you here from the PWR studios in a very, very snowy Midwest. Hopefully everyone is safe and ready and hunkered down for what is a mega storm that is blowing through the area right now. But the weather outside might be frightful, but here in the PWR studios, things are delightful. Pun intended. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I want to remind you to subscribe to the show here on YouTube, and you can subscribe just by clicking the button in the bottom corner of the screen there, and always get updated on episodes of the Pro Wrestling Report when they become available. As you know, we bring you PWR Tonight on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday nights. Special episode coming this upcoming Monday night just before WWE Raw as well. And then tomorrow, Feedback Friday returns on a weekly basis. It will be live on Facebook. More on that later in tonight's broadcast. Let's get to tonight's hot news, ladies and gentlemen, and some big news coming across the wires today from the world of professional wrestling, including WWE releasing their business results for the full year of 2017. And those results show that they again achieved another record year financially for the company. All business segments, for the most part, with the exception of live events, were up. There's a caveat there that we'll talk about later in perspective. We're up, and WWE making more money than it's ever made, including the Attitude Era, including the Hogan years, ever. And again, we'll talk more about why that's significant later on in the perspective piece. But from that call and these earnings releases, they also have a conference call with investors where they address questions. And several of those questions were related to the XFL and related to the contractual status of many of their stars. As part of all this, WWE changed some of the departments, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, by which financial reporting occurred. So for instance, NXT used to be part of corporate expenses, basically. Now NXT is part of the live events faction of the business for WWE, which probably makes a bit more sense. And when I say NXT, I'm including the financial output that they have to put in to the Performance Center down in Orlando, Florida on an annual basis. So a couple of the noteworthy things from that call were Triple H, who participated as well. And I don't recall if he normally does or not. It feels like that was new for him today in that earnings call. But he stated that when asked about Ronda Rousey and the reasoning for WWE bringing her on board, obviously, Triple H saying she's an international star and that she is all in as it pertains to her future in WWE, and that she is going to be there for a multi-year contract and she will be part of the WWE landscape. So that answers some of the questions and some of the speculation that was out there as far as what Ronda Rousey would be doing long-term or short-term, or even just after WrestleMania in the company. It looks like she is there to stay for quite a while. And also on that call, we heard some questions about the XFL, the recently relaunched XFL, which will be kicking off in 2020 under a different parent company run solely by Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon alleviated some concerns by some of the investors by saying what he has said many a time before, including in the announcement of the reformation of the league, which is that he will not be doing anything less in WWE than he is doing now, and that the XFL will have its own management team. We'll see how that actually plays out, especially since there are so many reports out there being shared about McMahon stepping away from some duties and specifically being 205 Live, and a lot of people are making a big deal out of that. I was surprised Vince McMahon was even involved with 205 Live, to be honest with you. Not because of the quality of the show or anything having to do with the content of it, but obviously that much like NXT and the Performance Center were pet projects of Triple H. And I don't say that to make it a bad thing, but it just seemed like, you know, McMahon is more of a high-level guy, and he's got people to do the other things for him, and 205 Live was one of those other things. And there have been some rave reviews over the last few weeks for 205. So perhaps 205 Live, perhaps we did see creative changes or content changes as far as that program goes. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't get a chance to watch it every week, unfortunately, so I can't speak to those changes being positive or negative, but I can tell you that Vince McMahon is saying that the XFL will not take him away from his WWE duties. And quite frankly, he has to say that because he is tied directly in line with the earnings and the record profits and the record revenues that the company has made over the last few years. So if he goes on a call with investors and says he's no longer going to be as involved, confidence in the company will decline. In the investor field, on Wall Street, if you will, while it may be different in the wrestling fan world, on Wall Street, the stock would take an impact, the overall value of the company would take an impact if you were to make that statement. So again, let's see what the future brings and how that all pans out as far as Vince McMahon's involvement in the XFL versus WWE. And it's important to note, the XFL season kicks off after the Super Bowl and goes through the WrestleMania promotional season. So that could be an interesting juggling act for Vinnie Mac going forward. In other hot news today, and we'll talk more about that investor call later on, folks, but in other hot news today, we learned a couple of things, including big change to the Fastlane main event. Shane McMahon tweeted out earlier today that since it is now a triple threat and the end of SmackDown wasn't quite what they thought, with both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens progressing to a triple threat match against AJ Styles for the championship at Fastlane, he is going to have another match next week on SmackDown between Baron Corbin and Dolph Ziggler to determine who will be the fourth participant in that matchup. It will be a fatal four-way. Chances and the odds stacked against AJ Styles on that event. Whoever wins that match will be going on to Fastlane. And that's a toss-up, folks. You know, Ziggler stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Baron Corbin start, stop, start, stop. Either man could win it, and I'm fine with either man being involved in the matchup. Ultimately, I'm not sure this changes the outcome of the match overall as far as who would be expected to win, given the salivating that is going on over the matchup between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura that is currently slated for WrestleMania. We also learned from Ring of Honor that they are going to be streaming their event tomorrow night on FITE TV online. That's FITE FITE. It's going to be at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is called the Honor Reigns Supreme event. It's going to feature all of the major Ring of Honor talents, and again, will be available for free of charge on FITE. That's FITE TV, which is an app you can get on your mobile devices. You can watch it on Roku, things of that nature. If you go to FITE.tv/PWR right now, FITE.tv/PWR right now, you can download the app directly to your device just by going to that link. And it also supports us as a show if you do that. If not for any other reason than to get the free Ring of Honor show tomorrow night, you should definitely do so. WWE has also announced that Serena Deeb, former WWE diva and a member of the Straight Edge Society back in the day with CM Punk, has been added to the WWE Performance Center staff as a coach. Serena Deeb has already reported to the Performance Center and will be impacting the future of the company with her training skills. And finally, in hot news, Austin Aries, current TNA wrestling champion, former WWE star as well, revealed on a conference call just earlier today, I believe it was, that he has not signed a long-term deal with Impact Wrestling. In fact, he has signed a deal for a series of dates, and he is free to work wherever else he would like to work. Good deal by Aries, if that is indeed the case, and I believe it came from his mouth, so that's believable, and allows him to still work in other entities while being the TNA wrestling champion. And that is tonight's hot news. Fans, as we said earlier in the program, coming up tomorrow night on Facebook, it will be the live edition of the Pro Wrestling Report and Feedback Friday. Yes, indeed, we will be live with you on Facebook. That's going to be at 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central. Due to Ring of Honor now giving you the opportunity to watch their show tomorrow night free on FITE TV. That's FITE FITE. We are going to bump our show up a half an hour earlier to be in advance of the Ring of Honor show. So 5:30 p.m. Central, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Facebook Facebook.com/PWR show. Again, that's Facebook.com/PWR show. Feedback Friday live. You can interact with us live on the air as we bring you that broadcast exclusively on Facebook. So Feedback Friday, your chance to interact with the most interactive wrestling broadcast on the air today. Tomorrow, Feedback Friday, 5:30 p.m. Central, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Facebook. Take a moment right now, even if you have to pause this video, take a moment right now to go like our page on Facebook so that you get that you can participate in that live stream on Facebook tomorrow night. Folks, it's time for tonight's perspective, and I wanted to go back to an item we talked about in Hot News, and that is the World Wrestling Entertainment business performance. As was stated earlier, they reported record profits again, record revenue again, record subscribers to the WWE network again, some 1.5 million total, some 1.4 million of that, just under that, paid subscribers, meaning people are on that 1-month trial. We generally see a spike during WrestleMania and then the number drop a little bit as well. And they're proposing that there will be a modest increase in the number of overall subscribers by the end of the year. But one thing you have to ask yourself is, the company is breaking all records and delivering tremendous business and financial results versus what is seemingly a overall relatively negative fan sentiment out there. And it can be tied to a number of things: general dissatisfaction with the direction of the product, the overextended versions of Monday Night Raw that we get each and every week at 3 hours, the lack of major star power, at least in the fans' eyes, as being satisfactory. But it's difficult to weigh all of that up against them making money and say that they're doing something wrong. And that's a challenging thing to think about, because our voices as wrestling fans are well valued to us and to the company. However, as vocal as we may be, and I'm not going to use few because I think many more people are involved in these type of shows and wrestling behind the scenes, if you will, than anybody will ever admit. But the very vocal people that are out there that speak negatively about the product, the ones that boo Roman Reigns, either because they actually hate him or because they think it's cool, which I weigh higher in the reasoning behind why some of the people do it. The company's doing the best they've ever done. Better than they did when they had Hogan. Better than they did when they had Hogan and Flair. Better than they did when they had Austin. Better than they did when they had Rock. Better than they did when they had Austin and Rock. Better than the Attitude Era. Better than the 80s. They're doing better financially. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there are two groups WWE needs to satisfy. And the number one group that they need to satisfy is Wall Street as a publicly traded company. They will go where the money is. They're responsible for doing that for their shareholders. That's their primary goal. However, the secondary goal, which is almost the same as the primary, is fan satisfaction. If the fans aren't satisfied, the business, the number one, won't follow. So it's a delicate balance that they tightrope rather, that they walk on a quarterly and an annual basis. And we as fans continue to spend money. We as fans may continue to be dissatisfied and to express our dissatisfaction online and in social media and whichever other way we choose to do so, booing Roman Reigns. But Roman Reigns and the entirety of the WWE and all of its shareholders, of which I am one, are laughing all the way to the bank because they keep making more money, more money, more money, more money. Let's see how many of you get that reference. So you can look at everything, then you can break it apart. And if you break it apart, you say that they're media results. And now everything, television, digital, YouTube, things of that nature, the Facebook stuff that they're doing, all of that falls under a new category, the media category. And that is where their money is being made. That includes the television's rights fees for their programming in all the countries that they are broadcast in, of course, primarily here in the United States. And that is what's driving things overall. It also includes their network revenues. But live event revenues are down on an attendance basis. They keep increasing prices, which if they can, why not? The average ticket price goes up, the total attendance goes down. And in this case, the actual number of events that they did for the quarter, the fourth quarter specifically, were down over prior year. I'm unsure what that number is on an annual basis, but I do know that they did not make as much money on live events as they had in prior years. So that sort of goes back to what we said earlier about, is it the product? And is the product really the problem? And you can't say that it is, because they're making more money than they've ever made. And many of you criticize us on this program for looking at things from a business perspective versus from a different perspective of WWE. But quite frankly, part of our job is to inform you as to why that does matter. It doesn't make it right, but it's why it matters. And sometimes the right, actually, I can tell you this from experience, 98.72% of the time, the right business decision is never going to be the right personal decision, and vice versa. So if WWE had done everything that all of us vocal fans had asked them to do and reacted to our general dislike for Roman Reigns, and not pushed him and used him as the chosen one, as we like to call him, then they may not be in the position that they are in financially. Now, one could argue against that and say that had they chosen someone else, let's say a Dean Ambrose, because he's popular amongst the online community, perhaps they could be doing better. Maybe they're leaving money on the table. But you can't argue growth, you can't argue quarter-over-quarter growth or year-over-year growth, and the company continues to deliver both. Now, Vince McMahon also said on this call today that I talked about earlier that the talent roster is very strong in WWE right now. And I'm not sure you can argue that. It's certainly the largest talent roster they've ever had. If you look at the two rosters for Raw and SmackDown, then you've got the NXT team, then you've got the Performance Center group, then you've also got those performing for 205 Live. There are a lot of oars in the water with WWE, and whether the quality is where it needs to be is to be determined, but the quantity is definitely there, and McMahon making that point today. So with all this, are they really compelled to change things, such as de-pushing or not focusing as much on Roman Reigns? Are they really compelled to change anything, even though this seems to prove that their strategy of Asuka and Nakamura and the pushes they've gotten and the positions they've gotten and now them winning the Rumbles is the wrong thing to do, as some people, including, I never said it was wrong. I don't want to get lumped into that category. I just said I don't get it when it pertains to Nakamura. And by the way, he'll see AJ Styles at WrestleMania if you watch SmackDown on Tuesday. But, you know, I think that if you're Vince McMahon, if you're the chairman of the board, if you're a shareholder, if you are the Wall Street analyst, you're looking at these business results for WWE and saying, hey, company's on the right track. I think the only negative thing that came out of today's call was the realization that perhaps the network is reaching a level of maturity. And what that means is they've been sitting around 1.5 million subscribers for a pretty good period of time now. And is there additional growth out there is the question that they are asking, and the answer that no one will know until the future does tell. So I'll summarize my perspective tonight with this. WWE, record business results, record revenues, record profits, record business results. Not the most popular era of the company's existence. Arguably, without argument rather, that was the Attitude Era, even bigger than the Hogan time. Bigger than the wrestling wars of Nitro versus WWE. Now I wonder if, and I have not done this math, and I'm sure someone has out there perhaps, and if they have, please point me in their direction at Damian Nelson on Twitter. I wonder if when you combine the business results of WCW at its height and WWE at that same time, do you approach these type of numbers? Perhaps, but keep in mind as well, WCW, even when it was incredibly successful, was hemorrhaging a lot of money for a lot of these bad contract deals that they had entered that WWE is not in right now. So, you know, I think you can find a way if you want to find a way, and if you, you know, want to, you can use this either against or for the current status of the product. Either it's working great and there's no reason to change it, just keep it fresh and keep it going, or they're leaving more record profits and revenues on the table by not changing it up and by not focusing on what a lot of very vocal people have asked for. And, you know, I think that the company, quite frankly, has been riding a wave between the two. And, you know, they're giving you Nakamura and Styles. I think that's going to be the result for WrestleMania, which is a wrestling match with no marquee value. And please don't think I'm knocking either of those talents. It's just a matter of Joe Walmart, if he's not with John McCain and Sarah Palin, as he's driving down the road and looking at the billboard and he sees Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and John Cena and The Undertaker prominently featured on the billboard, right there, the click, that's WrestleMania. If he sees Nakamura on the billboard prominently featured, he says, "Who's that guy? Oh, I don't know these people anymore. I'm not going to order WrestleMania." So they have to ride that line, does WWE. And it makes sense. If you really step back and think about it, take the passion of who you think is better, who you think is worse out of it. Really think about it. They have to ride that line, and they have to serve both audiences. And I think that today's results and the future, immediate future, at least what WrestleMania seemingly is shaping up as, shows that they're doing so finally. So keep your, and when I say finally, that was not finally, that was finally, no A, just an E. So let me know your thoughts, folks. Share your thoughts on this episode, on this broadcast right here, and we will possibly get through some of your comments tomorrow on Feedback Friday. You can ensure that your comments are part of tomorrow's Feedback Friday by liking us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PWR show, and you can go ahead and broadcast and be with us live tomorrow night, 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern for Feedback Friday Live. Also on our Facebook page and, of course, our website, pwrshow.com. Get all the information about this gimmick, Shenanigans Bourbon Street, coming Friday, April 6th to the Bourbon Cowboy down in New Orleans. Why do I say it that way? It's New Orleans, Louisiana. Hell, I lived there for 2 years. I should know these things. It is... I'm not going to keep selling it to you. I'm not going to Shivani it and tell you, you know, it's the greatest Monday night in the history of Monday nights since Monday nights were created until the last Monday night. But this will be all those things as far as a WrestleMania party goes. And you want to get your tickets because it will sell out weeks in advance. And tickets are moving very, very fast, folks. Open bar, free drinks all night. Big Sexy Kevin Nash, several other wrestling stars, pwrshow.com. But there's also an event available for purchase and for information on our Facebook page as well. So thank you very, very much for joining us. If you haven't already, also subscribe to our podcasts. It really helps us out if you take the show with you on the go as well, and spread the word about the Pro Wrestling Report. Let your friends know. Oh, you didn't know, you better call somebody. Let them know to subscribe to the Pro Wrestling Report to get the most wrestling content in media consumption form available from any entity covering professional wrestling. And we're proud to be able to bring it to you, and we are going to continue. And with tomorrow's Feedback Friday, a special edition of PWR Tonight on Monday, and then our normal schedule of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as well next week. So for all of us here at the Pro Wrestling Report, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for joining us in the mega storm of the century. And we'll see you tomorrow night live for Feedback Friday.